Welcome to Daily Metal, where every day a different metal album gets dissected for your sadistic listening pleasure. I'm the heavy metal lawyer, Emma, and in this show, I'll talk about why the music in these albums is so good and where they fall in the history of music's most wretched genre. Buzzsaw guitar is definitely one of my favorite sounds in metal, even today when the genre is so heavily saturated with that sound. But it wasn't always that way, especially today in 1990 when the Swedish death metal band Entombed debuted with their album Left Hand Path. The album changed the way that guitar has been played in metal, as well as giving Sweden its own claim to fame in the genre. The key to the sound is number one, dropped B tuning, which for those who aren't guitarists is a very low tuning. Number two, a DS1 pedal. And number three, the Boss HM Heavy Metal 2 pedal. And you max out those pedals, max them out, crank it all the way up to 11. Compared to some of the ridiculous pedal boards you sometimes see today that cost more than the rent on my Brooklyn apartment, this is an easy and affordable sound to replicate, in addition to being at home in most extreme metal genres. From grindcore to doom metal to beatdown hardcore, in addition to death metal like Entombed. While the buzzsaw guitar does steal the spotlight because of its historic importance, the reason why Entombed is one of the all time greats is every member of the band plays well and they play together well. There's the gruff growling and howling of vocalist LG Petrov, the rock and roll rhythms brought by drummer Nick Anderson, who also plays for Helicopters, and the weight of the bass, which was played on the record by multiple members of the band as they were in between bass players at the time. The title track roars the listener into hell before moving into a groove centric breakdown that showcases how the band had a good understanding of how the ferocity of music is often about what's before and after the intense sounds, not just making their sound as intense as possible at all times. The album has lots of 90s era death metal noodling that might feel a bit silly to younger listeners who grew up in the era of technical death metal and expect a little more virtuosity. But Entombed is smart enough to use it sparingly before the track ends with an outro using the melody from one of my favorite horror movies, Phantasm. Entombed albums in general tend to front end the best tracks. Their two other most famous tracks, besides Left Hand Path, are Wolverine Blues and To Ride, Shoot Straight, and Speak Truth, are both title tracks from their respective albums, and both come at the beginning of those albums. Personally, I prefer album construction that has the best tracks towards the middle or the end, so you're kind of building up to something. Though there are obvious exceptions to that rule, like Converge's Axe to Fall is a very well constructed album that starts with some of its best tracks, and Slayer's South of Heaven is another very well constructed album that starts with some of its best tracks. I do think every Entombed album, though, is worth giving a full listen to because there are some gems towards the end. In the case of the album Left Hand Path, you won't be disappointed if you stick it out for the rocker The Truth Beyond and the pounding Premature Autopsy with its absolutely demonic vocals. And to wrap things up, I wanted to say RIP to LG Petrov, who died in March of this year. He was really one of the greatest metal vocalists of all time. It was really a huge loss for the genre because at 49, he still had a lot of time to make great music and to be part of this scene. And if you like this video, please follow the channel because I'll be trying to put these out every day on the metal album that came out that day, why the music is so brutal, and where it fits in the history of the genre.